I think at O&A there's two types of networking. There's professional networking, which is like business relationships and handshakes and things like that. But there's also peer networking, which is the idea of meeting peers and colleagues, people that you can confide in and trust and who will grow with you. And those are people that you have real talk with, right, about things that didn't always go right. And FailFest is an attempt to do that a little bit more at scale as a way to acknowledge that, like, look, this happens to everyone and we should be okay with a certain amount of failure. And we should be able to grow from it and learn from it. Some of the examples on the panel were the failure of an entire company, the failure in management, right, interpersonal between a manager and an employer, the failure of a specific project, right, something like Messenger or a new product, and even the failure of something like hardware breaking, right, like a drone just breaking. So the failures can be big and small, and I think it's good that we are able to talk about the range and how we feel about it at the time and how we get over it and look back at it and learn from it. And I think the first thing is to understand that it happened and eventually get to a point where you're okay with it. And it's not going to happen right away. I think the first thing to recognize is that time is an important factor, right? Because the way we feel about it changes with our distance, right? Like the way you feel about it the next day is going to be different from a month and a year and 3 years. And I think that there's stages. It's not quite the stages of mourning, but there is this process of anger and denial and eventually acceptance. And I think it's okay to go through those things and to recognize where you are in that process. Another really important thing, and again, this is I think something that one gets out of O&A in the peer networking is to have someone that you can talk about it with, right? And it doesn't have to be on a panel or in a room of 200 strangers. It can be with like 2 or 3 people who you build a relationship with over time, who you trust, who you can confide in. Because one person, for example, in the audience did talk about like these things happened and it sucked, and it's like you spend a day in bed because you just like are feeling all the feels at once, and it took friends to sort of get them up and out and moving again. I think it's this process of self-care and having friends to remind you about that that's important.